Greetings, Eric the Racket Scientist here, back to you with another back-to-back racket ripping video. Slowly making my way, well, I guess very quickly making my way through my rackets that I obtained in Taiwan and China. And that's mostly because I'm very excited to use them, so I do want to kind of get them gripped as quickly as possible so I can get them strung and play with them. So next up, here we have the AxForce 90 New from Li-Ning, and some of you may know that I'm a pretty big fan of the AxForce series. It's kind of unique compared to other power series from other manufacturers in that it has some options, like for example the AxForce 80, which was the first model that came out. The swing style of some of these rackets are pretty different than any other power rackets on the market, and I really like that because it just kind of affords more options for people out there. And while a lot of people kind of misunderstood the AxForce 80, I think that it's a good product to give more, I guess, range to the options that people have. And for the people that do discover and like it, such as myself, that's, it's nice. And yeah, so with that said, so let's take a look at the other AxForce rackets I have here for you. So let's order them here. So on the bottom, we have an AxForce 80, and I have a lot of these actually. In terms of the 4U ones, I think maybe I have 6 of them, and one of them is repaired, so it's not like, it's not like an amazing condition. It's got like a crossweight and everything, but still sort of usable. And I did that because a while back I wanted to have enough of them to test various strings, but that's kind of a story for another day. Anyways, what is interesting about the AxForce series? Let's do a little bit of a recap here, especially the AxForce 80, which came out. This racket was known for being very whippy for a head-heavy racket. And so most kind of power rackets in the modern day are sort of fast-attacking rackets, where like they are head-heavy and they have a lot of power, but a lot of them swing fast. And these are rackets kind of like your R-Speed Metallic or your 88D Pro and stuff like that. And so this was kind of unusual because compared to a lot of high-end rackets, the AxForce 80 was relatively, the effective flexibility of this racket was very high. So like it has a lot of head weight, and it has a very boxy frame, and so there's a lot of kind of resistance, and it causes the shaft to flex a lot. And I think a lot of people were not comfortable with that. But for some people in some swing styles, that works. And yeah, so we have other rackets in the series. So next you have your 90 New, and before the 90 New, there was the AxForce 90 Tiger and 90 Dragon. And so it was a pair series. If you watch my video of my complete haul that I bought of the rackets that I bought in Taiwan and China, I actually misspoke. In that video I said that I owned the AxForce 90 Dragon. Actually that was wrong. I actually had the Tiger. My friend had the Dragon, so I did try both, but the Tiger was the one I lived with and couldn't really figure out how to use that. I think everyone kind of has a racket or two that they kind of pick up and they're like, I don't really get this. But you have to remember that I am the racket scientist, and I own over 50, that's 50 rackets. And for most of them, even the ones that don't really suit my natural play style, I've always been able to kind of mostly figure out how to end up using them. So it was actually very unusual for me to not be able to figure out how to use that racket, especially since I like the AxForce 80 so much. And as you're going to see, I like the AxForce 100 too. So I'm interested to see how this 90 New is going to serve me, whether I can figure it out more quickly and have a better time with this than I did with my 90 Tiger or the 90 Dragon. And yeah, it was really weird because if we compare them here, the silhouette is very similar between these two rackets. Most notably, the shaft length is actually kind of the same, and that makes me optimistic that I'll be able to use this racket, because I think both the Tiger and the Dragon had shafts that were much shorter, and that alone isn't enough to have, I guess, changed my ability to play with it, because as we're going to see here, I'm going to compare with you, the AxForce 100 has an extremely short shaft, and I think it ties with the Yonex 100ZZ for having the shortest shaft. And so here we have the 90 New, and unfortunately, again, I don't have the 90 Tiger with me, and I would have liked to compare, but I'm almost certain that the 90 Tiger and 90 Dragon both have shorter. I think the 90 Dragon has almost the same length shaft as the 100, and the Tiger had one that was slightly longer. But as we can see, this 90 New has a much longer shaft that's almost the same length as the AxForce 80. I think part of the reason why it didn't work out for me, the 90 Tiger, was partially because it was the combination of the short shaft, but there also not being enough tools in the head to help you get that flex, right? So for the AxForce 80, you have kind of a longest shaft, which is nice. It's easy to flex, but you also have a lot of head weight and a lot of air resistance, okay? And we go to the 100, which has a very short shaft and less air resistance because of the smaller head, and it's more aerodynamic. It's actually less boxy. I'm going to show you closer afterwards. But also the AxForce 100 is extremely head heavy, like very head heavy, and the shaft is very thin. So this is a 6mm shaft, whereas the AxForce 90 New has a 6.4mm shaft, and the AxForce 80 has a 6.6mm shaft. So it's actually a huge jump. And as a result, I've never had problems flexing this one because you just snap it really fast, and the really thin shaft and like big head weight kind of help it come through. But I think the 90 Tiger kind of sat in a situation where the diameter of the shaft and length of the shaft and amount of head weight was kind of in this zone that made it a little difficult for me to flex. And of course, there are pro players that use those rackets. Jonathan Christie using the Tiger, and Lo Ken Yu using the Dragon, but those are both really strong guys. So I'm not really surprised that it worked out for them. Anyways, let's go back to talking about the other thing I mentioned, which was the cross-section of the frame. So as I mentioned, let's take a look here. The AxForce 80 has a very boxy frame, a lot of air resistance. It's quite thick, and it's also not fully recessed. So a lot of air resistance there. We have the AxForce 90 New. Now, this head shape is a similar size, but we can see that it's a little bit smaller, particularly around the bottom of the frame. It's partially because it's fully recessed, but also it's just a little tighter here. And it's also very hard to see, but it's a little more tight and truncated around the kind of like the 1, 2 o'clock and the 10, 11 o'clock areas as well. So in all in general, just a little bit more focused of a sweet spot. And if we take a look at the frame here, it is still a little boxy, but it's more rounded than the AxForce 80. It's also fully recessed, so it's going to have less air resistance. We do have the thinner shaft, but it's the same length, 6.4 millimeters. And so, like I said, we are taking away some of the air resistance here by making a smaller head and having it be more rounded. Same length shaft, but then we're adding in a little bit of that flexibility back by making the shaft a little smaller. And then we're also going to check the balance there. An AxForce 100. We have supposedly also a small frame, and so this is interesting. It could be that because it is strung right now, but the frame is narrower, but it actually has more isometric to it, which means that the AxForce 100 will have a larger sweet spot overall. Larger sweet spot, but kind of a narrower, as in you kind of get a more rectangular one, whereas with the 90, it's probably going to be more in the center. And that's fine because the 90 is supposed to be more of a singles racket anyways, so that's interesting. And again, shaft is significantly shorter than both the 90 and the 80, and we're going to show you that right now. So if I line up the T joints here, you can take a look at this. That is over 1 centimeter of difference, which is a huge difference. So let's set aside the other rackets and let's get started. Probably already wasted a lot of time yapping, so especially since I predict this grip is going to be a pain in the ass. Historically, AxForce rackets have always, the Li-Ning rackets have been historically kind of a pain in the ass to do the gripping, because it always leaves behind residue. So we're going to see if this is kind of the same. And oh yeah, right before I take this off, talk about the paint a little bit, just briefly. I think this is a very good looking racket. It's not super coherent, but it's nice looking. There are a lot of angles and stuff. It's not super organized. I think my favorite part, now that I get this in hand, you won't be able to see this on camera, and I wasn't either, but there are some parts of the paint that are this like kind of deep forest green, deep emerald color. So that's kind of like right here. It's a little bit of it here and here. It's a really beautiful metallic, deep emerald color. And I really like how that looks. And it's actually, the color code written here is called Darkest Spruce and Flame. So based on that, I guess this is supposed to be modeled after like a forest fire, which, you know, is a choice, I guess. Stop. Yeah, so stock grip on Li-Ning rackets, always very nice. This one doesn't have the ridges. Some of the AxForce, especially the AxForce 80, had kind of like a ridgy, wavy grip. It was interesting. This one's just smooth, but the stock grips on Li-Ning rackets are very nice and have always been. And yeah, we already have, beautiful. Yeah, so in the past, they used to do the double-sided tape all the way down the handle, and I think they realized that that was just kind of a waste. Well, it was a waste of resources, because you don't need that much adhesive tape, but it's also a huge pain in the ass, so I think they stopped doing it, which is nice. And now you only get some of that tape at the top and the bottom, which is still annoying, but it's better than before. So go ahead and take the staple out. Okay, got that. That's cool. The bottom tape came off very nicely, so I won't have to do anything there. This part of the handle is clean, so it's really just the top here that I have to worry about. So let's kind of evaluate, you know, can I pick this off with my fingernail? And if you're going to do this, scrape it off with your fingernail. Just a reminder that you want to be pretty careful. Sometimes the wood in the handle is soft enough that you can actually dent it with your fingernail if you push hard enough. So you really want to be careful that you're not putting too much direct pressure and that you're just kind of scraping gently. And, you know, it's like you only have to do this once, so it just kind of pays to be careful and gentle with it. I think we'll do that just because I spent so much time yapping about this racket. Another thing to note, the end cap is a little different. I can't tell. Yeah, see, Li-Ning used to use this carbon fiber end cap for their high-end rackets, and then they kind of stopped doing that. You see, my AxForce 100 also has this plain end cap, and the 90 does as well. It's also plain. But they also started adding these little kind of ridges in to, I guess, reduce the amount of material in it, maybe make it a little lighter. Hard to say. Yeah, I guess the hardest question is figuring out what order I want to actually string and play with these rackets at. Like, I really do. I'm really excited for this racket. If you don't have any rags to use, you can use old t-shirts, but you can also just get scrap cotton cloth on Amazon for very, very cheap. Just a tip. So I use that for, like, if I need to like varnish wood and stuff, and yeah, so for this racket stuff as well. All right. Yeah, this stuff can get pretty messy, but like once you start to see this tape peel away instantly, it just becomes a lot more worth it. This stuff is really annoying, the tape I mean, so it's just, if you can, and like sometimes you just need to like dip the surface in the Goo Gone and you can see it starts to peel right off, because the reason why it's hard to get off is because the adhesive part that sticks it to the wood is basically as strong as the structural integrity of the tape itself. So when you try to tear it off, just like that, it kind of doesn't want to come off. But you soak it in a little Goo Gone, the strength of it sticking to the wood gets weakened, but for a brief amount of time, the structural integrity of the tape remains. So then you can just kind of peel it off there. So basically you just want to cover the whole thing in a little bit and then peel it off. And you know, it does leave a residue, so we're gonna take care of that. Where did I put, okay. But a little bit of residue is not that big of a deal. It's easier to get off than, I think we're actually done. Thank God. This is always my least favorite stage of gripping rackets, is when I have to do this stuff. So it's always a pleasure to get it over quickly. Yeah, okay, yeah, another annoying thing, could be annoying, could be a good thing about the Li-Ning end caps is that they are a little pokey, spiky. They have little pokey spikes on them, which is nice because when you put the electrical tape and you grip them, the stuff stays on really well. But when you're trying to clean it with little cloths and stuff, everything gets stuck, which is a little annoying. Oh, hello. Whoops. Speaking of letting it dry, forgot I left out this salami stick last night. So I should probably eat it. Yeah, I left it out because I was defrosting this. So quick aside, like most salami sticks you can see at like, I don't know, gas stations or grocery stores. There's like Slim Jim, I think, is the most famous one. There's a business local to Washington State that makes their own salami sticks with like, you know, less preservatives and stuff. They sell them in big packs. And it's like miles better than the ones you can get in the store. You have way less preservatives, fresher ingredients. And yeah, you buy them in big packs, so kind of to freeze and defrost them. So that's gonna be there. You know, I don't know if I'm crazy or not. Something's not right here. Let's see. So if I put him base to base, this is one of those situations where the cone shape is different, and that results in like kind of a different handle shape. You can see that the 90 has a longer cone, so it appears that the handle is shorter, but it's actually not. The cone ends at around the same place. Actually, if anything, the AxForce 90, I think, if I'm not, my eyes are not deceiving me, the AxForce 90 has a slightly longer effective shaft. It's very small though, maybe like 2 millimeters. You can see that if I hold the end caps together, the T-joint on the 90 is about 1 millimeter higher, but also what does Yonex call this cap? It's like the power boost cap or something like that, where like it kind of allows directional flex. Only the groove on the 90s, the cone is deeper, which essentially gives the shaft like an extra millimeter of wiggle room. So that's actually very interesting. But that kind of tracks again, because like the 90s, I suppose, a more singles focused racket. So having a longer shaft is kind of works towards that. But it's going to be interesting to see, because the AxForce 100 is actually a racket that I quite enjoyed playing singles with. And that one has a very short shaft and kind of a different personality. So it'll be interesting seeing how the 90 compares. Maybe it'll be like slower responding. I just realized there's some residue on this AxForce 80, so I'm actually going to clean this up. Yeah, so all 6 of these AxForce 80s have just been kind of chilling on my wall, waiting for me to do something with them, and I keep neglecting them. They're like, please string me, please play with me, and I'm like, no, Daddy's busy with other stuff. But I promise I'll get around to it. Wow, I really didn't do that good of a job here. Yeah, his videos used to be called racket gripping ASMR. So if you're here listening to me like chewing on my salami stick, it's like, if you think about it, it's really kind of your fault. You should know what the series is called. Okay, real talk though. Gotta figure out what to do for dude. I think the most depressing thing coming back from like Taiwan and China is, I mean, yeah, badminton stuff's more expensive here. And, you know, when we say like more expensive, we're talking like top end rackets are like regularly anywhere from like $40 to $80 cheaper. Most places in like China, or sometimes even more. I think Li-Ning specifically in the US or like North America, like you can get Li-Ning in Canada too. The prices of Li-Ning rackets in North America is actually like batshit insane. They charge similar prices to Yonex Pro rackets, so like we're talking on the higher end of $200, close to $300. So like this AxForce 90 new would generally cost like $280. In my opinion, look, I love Li-Ning rackets, and you'll hear me say this, but the build quality of Li-Ning rackets still does not match Yonex rackets. And so to be charging Yonex prices when you can get them for the same price is like kind of like you're not really motivated to do that. Especially when in Asia you can get both for a lot cheaper. Even then, Taiwan Yonex rackets you can get for 170, 180, and then in China, Li-Ning rackets you can get for maybe around the same. And this one was actually on the pricier side. This was actually almost $200 US even in China. I don't know if it's because it's very new or whatever, but I don't know. That's how it is. I think they're starting to realize they can charge more. But on the other hand, Li-Ning has kind of been slacking a little bit on their marketing in terms of like sponsorships or whatever. They used to have quite a lot of sponsorships among the Indonesian and Danish team, but they've lost a lot of those to Victor or 100. There's like very few players that are sponsored by Li-Ning right now. But they also haven't really been coming out with a lot of products though. This AxForce 90U is like I think the only kind of the thing to come out. Oh wait, no. I've heard rumors that there's going to be a second version of the AxForce 100 as well. That one's interesting to me. I don't like AxForce 90, I think makes sense that they were going to make a second version because a lot of people really didn't like it. And it's not the same as AxForce 80 where people were like misguided, like they don't understand the use case of the racket. It's like, no, people legitimately had a very tough time using that racket, the AxForce 90s. So coming out with this one is like, made sense. Like, you know, it's one of those things where like, you know, the pro players were okay with it, but the average Joe on the court couldn't really kind of figure out how to use it. And it's like that way with some rackets. I think for famously, like the Z-Force 2 was a racket that like, you know, Li Chongwei, Lin Dan used that racket. And for most of us club players, we can't really reach a good potential out of that racket, but it still feels good in some capacity. And then, which you're totally entitled to, do that. And in my mind, it's kind of like just like a rich guy wanting to buy like a Porsche, and it's like, will they be able to use the Porsche to its full potential? Not really, but it's like if you have the money and if you want the speed, then you're kind of entitled to like buy it if you want. I think I'm really gonna overrun this cone, yeah, because again, this handle's a lot shorter than I expected. But yeah, the thing about the AxForce 90s though is just that there are some people who just like couldn't even figure out how to use it at a basic level. And like, I wouldn't say that was me. Like I could, there were a couple shots that felt okay, but overall I just didn't really understand the power delivery on that racket. And like, You know, I know more now than I do back then, but it was still, like, I still owned the AxForce 90 during my collecting phase. Like, I had, you know, a good 30 rackets at the time. So it's not like it was totally before I understood anything about rackets or anything. But my point is that when it comes to the 100, they're remaking it, and yeah, it's been a while, so I can understand why they're remaking that one. But the AxForce 100 is, in my opinion, a very good and well-designed racket. I don't think it actually needs a redesign. You know, are people going to buy the new one? Yeah, sure. But there's actually nothing wrong with the old one. I think, actually, out of all the AxForce rackets, that's the one that received the least complaints. And for those of you who don't know, the AxForce 100 famously, you know, I don't think Li-Ning will ever admit this, but my understanding or my take on it is that it's a competitor to the AxForce 100 ZZ, because again, like it shares the infamous extremely short shaft length and very thin shaft, and so you know, it has the same concept to it. But in my opinion, the AxForce 100 is overall across the board like easier to use and more approachable. Wow, I totally forgot that I was supposed to weigh this next to my AxForce 80, but now that I gripped it, I can't do that. Okay, well, that's great. Anyways, I guess I have to wait to string it in order to weigh and balance it, and that's fine. Anyways, kind of a long video with a lot of yapping, so if you stuck with me this long, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which I think I'm gonna do the Mizuno next, I guess, maybe. Mizuno or the Kawasaki, but I don't know. Anyways, I'll get around to it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.